This way passes through the village. It is full of monsters. Better to be careful.
Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel where I like to talk about game development. I hope you are doing well and everything is going well too. Today, we continue with the third part of the series. In this part, I'm gonna cover Cinemachine Camera and follow target structure for Cinemachine. So, let's get started if you are ready. In this project, for the camera system, we're gonna use Cinemachine. The Cinemachine is a camera tool for Unity that gives AAA game quality controls for cameras in your projects. We're gonna need to add Cinemachine as a package to our project. It is pretty straightforward, nothing really special. We are opening Package Manager, which we can find under the Window menu. In this window, we are searching for the Cinemachine. Just please pay attention that from the top filter, you should already select Unity Registry to be able to find this package. After we have found the package, we click to download and then install it. We can close the Package Manager window as we have finished installing the Cinemachine package. So now, we're gonna add Cinemachine to our scene. But before that, we're gonna need to add two empty game objects. We're gonna use these game objects for two different purposes. One of them is gonna be the target for the camera to follow, and the second one is gonna be to look at target for the camera. So briefly, one of them for the camera to follow, and another one for the camera to look at. Let's add an empty game object and name it camera. We're gonna use this game object as a parent. We continue by adding camera follow and camera look at empty game objects as helpers for the Cinemachine. Finally, we are adding Cinemachine. As you can see, there are a bunch of different types of cameras, but we're gonna use free look camera for this project. So we are adding free look camera to the scene and name it as player camera. As you can see in the inspector window, there are too many options that we can use to manage the camera to get desired result. But before that, we need to add a new script that we're gonna use for camera helper game objects. So let's create a new script file and name it camera target. We are not gonna need the start method, that's why we are deleting it. Let's take the namespace from another script and pass it here, because we wanna keep all the scripts in the same namespace. To put it briefly, we're gonna add a few lines of code in the script, which is gonna make the game objects follow the player. We're gonna have two options for this script, such as follow and look at. So the script is gonna make the game object to follow player accordingly. We're gonna need to have player controller to follow. For now, we don't have any script which is player controller. So let's add it and leave it empty for now. After that, we are defining a variable as camera follow type. You may already pay attention that we don't have such type, so let's open the definition file and add new enum to there as camera follow type. We are adding two options here such as look at and follow. As we have finished this one too, let's continue with the two new variables which are gonna give some ability to us to manage how the script is gonna follow the player. The first one, look at attitude, which is gonna be the value of the y-axis of the look at game object. The second one is the factor that is gonna tell the game object how far it should be from the player. We can start to add some codes to give functionality to the script. In the update method, we are checking camera follow type. If it is look at, we are setting the position of the game object in front of and a bit above the player. If it is follow type, we are setting the game object position the same as the player, but additionally, we are adding some altitude to it. Actually, we can set a new variable for the y-axis value and control it from the inspector. So let's edit new variable and use it from there. Let's turn back and let the Unity compile script. So now we need to add new scripts to the player and camera helper game objects. Firstly, let's add a player controller to the player. Then camera target script to both camera helper game objects. After that, we are assigning player controller to the camera target script. We are changing the camera follow game objects camera follow type as follow. We are not gonna change the camera follow type for the look at game object, but I'm gonna change the values a bit. I already know the values because I have already tested, but you may try new values to get different results. So I'm gonna go with these values. So now we can assign these camera helpers to Cinemachine. We are assigning camera follow game object the follow field, camera look at to the look at field. Simply we are telling to the Cinemachine what to follow and where to look. As you can see, the camera is moving and looking according to camera helpers, which we have just assigned. It is time to make some configurations for Cinemachine. We are changing the priority of the camera. We are changing it now because we're gonna have another camera later on. So this field is gonna help us to manage them. The Cinemachine gives us the ability to change the lens of the camera which we're gonna use. I'm gonna go with the 50. If you have an interest in photography or cinematography, you already know that 50mm is pretty popular. We're gonna control the camera from both the keyboard and the mouse. For the horizontal movement, we are gonna use A and D buttons on the keyboard, while using the mouse scroll for zoom in and zoom out. We start by changing the input axis name for the y-axis to mouse scroll wheel. This makes Cinemachine listen to mouse scroll for changing y-axis value. We are changing the value and the speed of the changing it, and also we are setting exhale and desale time for changing value. Don't worry if it is not so clear for now. We're gonna see all these settings in the action too, and it's gonna be more clear. Here, there is another feature which we are not gonna use for now, but it could be very useful if you wanna use it. It is recentering. This feature makes the Cinemachine to the center camera if there is no movement on it. We're gonna test this feature later on. We continue by changing horizontal control values as we have done for the y-axis. Here, we are changing the input axis name to the horizontal. So the Cinemachine is gonna listen to keyboard for related inputs. Please pay attention that the names which we have used here for the input axis name are coming from the input manager, which you can find under project settings window. So if you have a different name for such inputs, you're gonna need to use the names which are defined in the input manager. The Cinemachine free look camera has 3 rigs which define 3 states of the camera. Top rig, which is the highest position for the camera, and the middle, which is the middle position for the camera, and finally, bottom, which is the closest to the player. Each rig has options that you can control, such as high and radius. I'm gonna go with the values that I already tested, but it is up to you to go with different values if you wanna have different camera view. Or for now, you can do as I do and then change as you wish. Finally, we are setting blend hit under transition. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is the one of the features that we're gonna use when we have another camera in the scene. The Cinemachine has very useful features such as extensions. We're gonna use one of them to avoid our camera to pass through the objects. From down below menu, you can see that there are a bunch of extensions that we can use, but for now, we're gonna use Cinemachine Collider. As you can see here, there are some options for this extension. As I mentioned, we don't want a camera to pass through the objects. In our example, those objects are walls and buildings. To be able to do this, we need to select layers for collide against options. So let's add two new layers such as building and wall, then assign them to the related objects. After that, we need to select those new layers in the Cinemachine Collider extension. So now Cinemachine can detect any collision. Additionally, there are some options that we can play and they change the behavior of the Cinemachine when there is a collision. You can change the type of the actions such as pull camera forward or preserve camera height or distance, smoothing time and damping, etc. We're gonna test these settings in the action at the end. For now, I'm gonna go with the settings which I believe are the best for this example project. By the way, we need to update camera cooling settings. We need to tell the camera what to render and what to not. So let's select player and enemy layers, building and wall layers as well. Otherwise, you are not gonna see them in the game view. There is one more thing that I want to mention. When we added the Cinemachine camera to our scene, it also attached the Cinemachine brain component to the main camera. This is how Cinemachine works. Doesn't matter how many cameras you add to the scene, Cinemachine doesn't add any new physical camera. Everything works as virtual. And this brain attaches to the main camera only once when you add any Cinemachine cameras. So let's test the Cinemachine camera by clicking to play. Yeah, we have a bit strange behavior at the beginning. Actually, this is happening because of the camera helpers which we have created at the beginning. But all other features seems to work pretty well. So let's fix the strange behavior problem which we had at the beginning. We're gonna move helper objects closer to the player. Or you can update the script and put the same function to the start method which we have in the update method. I'm gonna bring the objects closer to the player to solve this problem. So let's test it again. Yeah, this is much better. Everything works well. There is one more thing which I wanna change. Not because there is a problem, but in the games, as you know of course, if you play, some controls could be inverted, which means the controls work in opposite directions. For example, in our case, we wanna zoom in and zoom out by using the mouse scroll wheel, but I wanna use as inverted because mostly we get used in that way. Of course, this is optional. You don't have to do that, but I prefer this way, so I am activating this feature. Yeah, now much better and comfortable, at least for me. Okay, now we can play with the settings of the Cinemachine to see result in real. Let's start the game. Let's start with the lens. As you can see, when I change the lens, it is directly affecting to the view of the camera. It looks like kinda zoom in and zoom out, but not exactly. The next one is dodge feature. I guess this can be used for some blackout effects, but to be honest, it disturbs me a lot. I wouldn't use it. Okay, now let's change the values of the camera control. Let's start with the Y-axis control, which is mouse scroll wheel for us. As you already pay attention, I think, the value keeps changing according to mouse scroll wheel. We can make the value change much faster by changing the speed value. As you can see, now it is way faster than before, but of course, it is not so convenient for this example. Also, let's change the accel time to see its effect. As you can see, acceleration time is slower than before. This gives smoother zoom in and zoom out effects. Here there is another option that I already mentioned. Let's see it in action. If you enable this option, the camera is going to be centered if you don't move it for a while. As you can see, whenever I stop the moving camera, it centers according to player. Actually, it centers according to our helper objects because we set them as follow and look at for the camera. You can change the weight and recentering time to get different results. Okay, we can disable it for now, because we are not going to use it for our example. It can be difficult to aim to the enemy when this feature is enabled. Now let's check the rigs. Whenever I click the rigs, as you can see, the position of the camera changes mostly on the y-axis. For each rig, you can change the height and radius values and see the results. I'm gonna go with the values that I already tested and decided, but there is no harm to play with them to understand how it works. Also, you can set different values if you want to have different camera views. If you are planning to have different values, just keep in mind that we're gonna need to see enemies clearly to be able to aim them to shoot later on. Consider this while you are making changes. So that's the settings for now. Also, if you pay attention, there is a checkbox top of the options which is the save during play. If you enable this option, Cinemachine is gonna save all the changes which you are gonna do during play. So it is actually pretty cool feature to help you to organize camera way faster. And also there is a game window guides option, which you can use to limit camera movement and add some damping before movement, but this is the not subject of this example. That's why I'm not gonna cover it right now. You can still play with the other features to see the effects of them, which I didn't cover here to not make this video longer than needs to be. In this part, we have added the Cinemachine camera and camera follow helpers. In the next part, we're gonna continue to add new cool features to our game. Guys, as usual, I really appreciate that you have gave your time and watched this video. I hope you learned something new. If there are some suggestions to make these videos better, please share them with me in the comment section and help me to grow this channel. So don't forget to like the video and please consider subscribing. Thanks again. Take care. See you.